Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Wednesday, August 9th, 2017 edition of VR News. All right, before we jump into the VR news, the main portion of it, wanted to share something in the spirit of International Cat Day, which I realized was yesterday. I did miss it just because of the production schedule yesterday, and I would have missed it altogether if it hadn't have been VR related. Well, it is. And the links to those are in the description below because admittedly the apps weren't fantastic or even super great. They were okay. Here's my cat. Here's a video of the little thief beggar in action busting through into our master bedroom. I may have shared this in the past, but yeah, don't let anyone tell you cats aren't smart. They're smart. He even figured out how to open the handles in this house. Sadly, no footage yet, even though the handles here are difficult. He uses basically a high jump strategy and then comes down with both paws extended downward so that the momentum and weight, the mass of his fall, opens the handle. It's a sight to see. Next up, Mozilla finally joining the WebVR functionality party. Well, they've had Firefox builds be WebVR compatible, but those were more for developers and people who are interested in the nightly builds, don't claim any kind of quality. They're usable at your own risk. Well, the full public version is going to get WebVR functionality via the Firefox 55 update. That is expected sometime before the end of the summer. We also hear today that there are going to be no Proto VR Awards for 2017. They say they're going to be back in 2018. But with regards to 2017, they said that they want to, and this is their quote, assess the changing landscape of immersive technology and entertainment. Not quite sure what that means, but either way, they're the biggest VR awards. They did cite Apple's AR kit and the upcoming launch of Microsoft's Windows-based VR HMDs as what they're referring to when they say the technology is a changing landscape. And next story, Ultrawing, which has been out for a while on the Oculus Rift, now making its way to the Vive. Well, it did about 2 weeks ago, and it was one of those games that just slipped through my cracks, despite about 20 reminders from viewer Chris Brower. Well, see, Chris, I did get around to it. The game takes place on a set of 3 islands. You complete various missions. There's some really cool nuances to the game. Going to be playing it myself. I've watched a lot of videos, and one thing that everybody who's played the game has said is that it's got a great feeling of presence and immersion flying around. You look at those videos, and admittedly, it doesn't look like it would, but we all know trying VR versus seeing it on a 2D monitor, two completely different things. So definitely something I'm going to try out. Super stoked about this next game announcement, guys. Res Infinite, which is, of course, a sequel to a game that first came out on the Dreamcast and the PlayStation 2. Loved it via the Dreamcast. Admittedly, I played it way later when I actually got a Dreamcast, thanks to Exidy getting me into console gaming, but I love the game. Well, now we receive word it is launching on both Rift and Vive. It's going to feature 4K resolutions as well as higher resolution textures. Kind of a moot point given the HMDs, but may still look better if it's 4K downscaled to 1080p rather than native 1080p. Not because that looks any better, but it might be how the game handles that, much like how the YouTube algorithm handles downscaled 4K better than native 1080p. If you purchase the game in the next 2 weeks, you get a discount off the regular $24.99 US price, meaning you can pick it up for $19.99 US. My 2 cents on this game, guys, I loved it. I really loved it on the PlayStation VR. Yes, it's an on-the-rails game. Yes, it's basically kind of Duck Hunt style. You're hitting targets, but there's a lot more under the hood. There's fantastic music, sound effects. The graphics look primitive again on a 2D screenshot, but when you're immersed in the world, really do a fantastic job of immersing you. All in all, highly recommend Res, definitely for the PC. And if you don't have a PC, if you got a PlayStation VR, pick it up. This next game, Espire 1, and I love stories like this because it really gets me thinking about how humans kind of work. One of the things you tend to see, and it's not the case with everyone, but in our youth, a lot of times we don't know what the boundaries are. We don't know what the technical limitations are. Some of that is naivety, lack of experience, whatever that is. It allows us as humans to just develop. We work on something, not realizing that anybody else who's worked on the platform for a while would probably say it's impossible, you can never do that. It's the same with musicians and really anywhere humans need to be creative. Once they're used to the grind and have established borders for themselves, it's a lot harder to be original. And it's why a lot of humans have bursts of years of amazing creativity and then can get themselves in a bit of a lull. Well, that gets us into this game, Espire 1. I'm not saying the devs don't have any experience or that they are the ones that are naive and they've suddenly, they're in their creative period. No, far from it. I really mean that more as an analogy for VR as a whole. There are no real hard, fast boundaries in place on what you can develop and how you can develop it. And that's why with this game, we're seeing yet another innovative form of locomotion, which according to those who've tried it, seems to be like a combination of eagle flight and onward. And I'll get back to that in a second. The game itself, billed by the developers as a Metal Gear Solid meets GoldenEye 007 in an immersive VR world. That's their exact description of it. You can use spy tools like cameras to peek around corners. But let's get back to the locomotion, probably the biggest innovation in the game. You move around by pressing on the Vive One's trackpad or the Oculus Touch control stick to guide your movement, just like in any other first-person shooter. So that part pretty much sounds the same. However, as you accelerate, your field of view starts to narrow into a box, and apparently what that does is it cuts down drastically and dramatically incidents of VR motion sickness. You can still see in your periphery the design that's clouded by this kind of digitization feature so that it doesn't seem part of what you're seeing focused ahead of you. And I got to admit, that is a really creative and innovative way to go about it. The rest of the gameplay apparently plays a lot like Onward, this according to Upload VR. So just for that reason, a game that I'm going to be keeping tabs on. I know there's quite a few of you that suffer from VR motion sickness. So if this is a game of any interest to you, love to get your feedback on it, guys. And let me know, has it helped you with your VR motion sickness? Of course, when you can get your hands on it. All right, guys, that is it for the news on this Wednesday. Hump Day officially over. As always, guys, cheers.